It's not just Champions Cup this weekend. Challenge Cup also starts the knockout rounds. My name is Mark. Let's talk rugby. Challenge Cup round of 16. Normally this is where, if a team gets a win in this, suddenly they start thinking maybe a little bit more seriously about it. Possible trophy at the end of the season, final appearance, etc. And I think this year's knockout as well, it's going to be interesting because last year's finalists Bath and Lyon not in the knockout stages. This year Lyon, terrible performance in the pool stages, didn't even qualify for knockout stages. Bath in the Champions Cup. Then the semi-finalists as well, the beaten semi-finalists, Edinburgh and Racing 92. Racing, not a great performance this year, didn't make any knockout stages, and Edinburgh are playing in the Champions Cup this weekend against Leinster. So it means that we know there's going to be a new champion this year compared to last year. We know as well that the semi-final lineup is going to be completely different from last year as well, which is nice as well, because we've seen in both competitions in recent years that you've got a handful of teams, 3 or 4 teams, and you look back at the finals, semi-finals, and some combination of them are in there somewhere in both competitions. So it's nice to have that little bit of difference this year. And as I said, a lot of teams probably at the moment not taking this competition all that seriously, but a win here into a quarterfinal and suddenly things can start changing for them. So what we're going to do is we're going to go down through the fixtures for this weekend, and then we are going to have a look how the teams actually got here, and also start making some predictions as well. So going to start the first game of the weekend, and that is Connacht Rugby versus Hollywoodbets Sharks. So yeah, this is an interesting one because Connacht hit a little bit of form recently. Sharks as well, though. Sharks have been climbing that URC table, and I think at the moment they're 9th and 10th in the URC. So, pretty much as close as you could be in the league at the minute. And, there's a lot of stuff in this as well, because we know Sharks, former champions in this competition as well. So we know they can take this competition seriously when they want to. And that could spell bad news for Connacht. But if we look at how the teams got here, so first of all, Connacht, they started in this competition in the pool stages. They go away to Ospreys, they lost 24-21. Then home game against Black Line, they win that one fairly easily, 52 points to 0. Then they go away to Montpellier, they lose that one, 33 points to 31. And finally finish off big home win against Montauban, 75-14. The Sharks then, they started off in the Champions Cup, didn't go all that well for them there. That's why they're down in this competition. So they start off away to Toulouse, centre weakened team. They lose 56 points to 19. Then home game against Saracens, win that one 28 points to 23. Then they go away to Sale, they lose that one 26-10. And that was a very winnable one if they had sent a better side and maybe taking things a little more seriously. And then they finish off them with a win at home to Clermont, 50 points to 12. So we don't see that many teams from the Champions Cup who've had 2 wins and potentially could have had at least a losing bonus point out of another game as well coming down into this competition. But that's where the Sharks find themselves. Last year Connacht made it to the quarterfinals of this competition. The Sharks made it to the round of 16. So yeah, this is a tight one. But Connacht, they found a little bit of consistency now. I think they won 4 on the bounce in the URC, and home advantage at the Dexcom. this feels like a big game for them. Last year, they didn't do too well in that quarterfinal. They were beating, I think, Racing, right? Racing players sent off, and Racing just produced a brilliant performance, come over the top of them and beat them. So, and Connacht have unfinished business maybe with this competition. So I'm going to go for a Connacht win in that one. Oh, and before we forget, that game as well is on Friday, 8 o'clock kickoff at the Dexcom Stadium. Okay, on to the next one, and it's the first Saturday game. So it's Montpellier versus Perpignan. This is a 12:30 kickoff at the Septo Stadium. And yeah, we've got Montpellier, themselves and Benetton really standout teams in the pool stages this year. And yeah, they're one of the top seeds coming into this. And this is 5th versus 13th in the top 14. So another, clash where they're both in the same domestic league. And Montpellier, their run to here. So they start off with away win to Blackline, 24 points to 13. That was probably Blackline's best performance actually in this year's competition. Then they go away, home to Zebre to beat them 31-17. Home to Connacht, they win 33-31. That was really a shootout for top spot in the pool. And then Ospreys, then they go away to them and they win 31 points to 26. So they kind of had two kind of finals, if you like, because, had they lost to Connacht could have beat them the first spot. And had they lost Ospreys as well, they might have lost out in the first spot as well. So, fairly competitive pool, but Montpellier coming out on top. Perpignan then, they start nice, decent home win against Dragons, 41 points to 17. Go away to Benetton then, they lose 44-31. Then they go to Newcastle. They lose that one 26-19. Newcastle, one of the surprise teams of the pool stages. And then they host the Lions in the final game at home. And they draw that one 20 points all, but that was enough to take them through to the knockout stages. Both of these teams knocked out in around 16 last year. So one of them is going to progress further. Montpellier, as I said, have been one of the form teams through the pool stages, and probably one of those teams that didn't want the competition to go on break because they were doing so well. But I still think, they're going to take this out, and it's going to be a Montpellier win there. Okay. Next time we have Exeter Chiefs versus Munster, and this is Saturday 12:30. It's at Sandy Park, and yeah, the interesting one, like, a couple of years ago, you could see this being around a 16 or quarter-final tie in the Champions Cup, but both of these teams, dipped since then. And yeah, like we got Exeter, they started off in this competition, start off with a win against the Toyota Chiefs. They win that one 42-21 at home. Then they go to Racing, they draw 31 all there. Next then, they go to Stade, they lose to them 27 points to 24. Then they finish with a win against Cardiff. Nice score for them, 31 points to 0. And Munster played in the Champions Cup. Start off that loss against Bath, 40 points to 14. Byrne going to the sin bin, and Bath absolutely rinsed them during the yellow card period. They never recovered. Then first home game of the pool stage, they beat Gloucester 31 points to 3. Look like they've gotten things back on track, but then they go away to Toulon, could have won the game, end up losing it 27 points to 25. But not to worry, just have to win their last home game and they'll probably qualify. They lose that to Castres, 31 points to 29. So not a brilliant performance in the Champions Cup from Munster, certainly. And yeah, it's kind of a different one to work out here, because you have Exeter, who are currently 4th place in the Prem, and Munster in 7th place. Munster, though, slipping down the URC table at the minute as well, so that's not going to be great for them. And last year, Exeter eliminated at the pool stages of the Champions Cup, and Munster making it to the quarterfinals of the Champions Cup. But as I said, these two teams playing in this competition this year, and it's a tough one to call. I want to back Munster because, they're an Irish team, but performances haven't been great. They were a bit better against the Bulls, I have to say, in the URC recently. But I think Exeter at home probably just have enough to edge them out. So I'm going to go for an extra win there. But probably when I'm picking for Super Rule, I'll probably pick Munster just because my Irish bias will raise his head again, I think, by the time I get to there. But yeah, for now, at least, I'm going for an extra win. Okay, on to the next game then, and that is Benetton Rugby versus Cardiff. This one is sorry, I have to double check. Yeah, so it's a 5:30 kickoff, and it's at the Stadio Monigo. And yeah, looking at this, you got Benetton 12th place in the URC, not having a great season. Cardiff 6th place in the URC, but Benetton, one of the teams that did really well in the pool stages of this competition, whereas Cardiff, even though they're much higher than Benetton in the league, not doing as well in the pool. So we start with Benetton. To go away to the Lions, they win that one 26-19. So brilliant for them, getting a win down in South Africa. Then home game against Perpignan, win that one 44-31. Then the Dragons, a big win, 74 points to 21 at home. And then finally then they go away to Lyon and they win 38 points to 19. So some really good performances from them in the pool stages. Cardiff then, they start off, they go away to Stade Francais. They lose that one 38 points to 17. Then home at Ulster, brilliant comeback win for them. Just pipping Ulster 29 points to 26. Ulster looked like they had that game won. Then another home win against Racing, 32 points to 13. Then they go away at Exeter. They lose 31 points to 0. Last year then, Benetton knocked out in the round of 16 in the Champions Cup, and Cardiff knocked out in the round of 16 in this competition. So one of these two teams is at least going to make a quarter-final this year. And, looking at the pool performances, looking at as well, the fact that Cardiff have been basically slipping down the league. Benetton have been brilliant in the URC recently, but neither have Cardiff. You have to remember Cardiff at one stage up in second place in the league as well. And also the fact that, Cardiff's wins in this competition this year have come at home, but they're going away to Benetton. So I'm going to give it to Benetton, and that one, it might be a close one, but I think, when it comes down to it, Benetton will have enough to take out the win. Okay, so next game then is Newcastle versus La Rochelle. And, this is an interesting one because you got Newcastle. They were a surprise package in this year's pool stages. They've only won one game in the Prem this year. They're sitting in 10th place, bottom of that league. La Rochelle not having the greatest season themselves. They're sitting 9th in the top 14. So this is kind of an interesting one here, I think. We look at, Newcastle in the pool stages. So they go to Lyon and they picked themselves up a win. Sure, it was a surprise to a lot of people, especially because, Lyon beating finalists last year. And if, in recent years, they've done really well in this competition. They've been winners of the competition. They've gotten to finals. But this year just, absolutely didn't deliver at all. And, this one was kind of a little bit of Newcastle being a surprise in terms of their performances in the competition, and Lyon being a disappointment, really. But 23 points to 14, they win that one. Then home, they're playing the Lions then, win that one as well, 14 points to 10. And then they get 3 wins on the bounce to beat Perpignan at home, 26 points to 19. And then finally then they go away to Dragons and they lose 35 points to 12. That in itself was a bit of a surprise, because I certainly expected that they would finish, the sweep of the pool, but they didn't. And maybe they would have got a higher ranking for the knockout stages had they won that game. But then they're playing La Rochelle. So La Rochelle played in the Champions Cup this year in the pool stages. First of all, home to Leicester, 39 points to 20 win, looking pretty decent. Then they go away to the Stormers. They lose 42 points to 21. Then they go to Leinster, almost beat Leinster. Leinster, last kick of the game, Harry Byrne popping it over, for 25-24 final score. And, possibly without that, La Rochelle would have been in the Champions Cup knockout stages instead. And then finish off then, kind of a damp squib home game against Harlequins. They lose that one 27 points to 17. So, not a brilliant end to their Champions Cup adventures this year. And, last year they made the round of 16 of the Champions Cup. Newcastle didn't get out the pool stages of this competition last year. So one of these two teams is progressing a bit further, at least in this competition. So, quarterfinal on the line. And I think, La Rochelle, given that, in top 14 is not going great, obviously no Champions Cup, I think they're going to take this game seriously, and I think they're going to take it to win. So I'm going to go for a La Rochelle win in that one. On to the next game then. Let me pull it up here. So, yeah, I've just got to do that. There we go. Okay, so the next one's Ulster versus Ospreys. This is a 8 o'clock kickoff at the Affidale Stadium up in Belfast. So always these weird sponsors of stadium names. But yeah, Ulster versus Ospreys in this one. So another all URC affair. This is 3rd versus 11th in the URC. Ulster, decent run in the pools without being spectacular. So they start off home against Racing. They win that one 61 points to 7. Then they go away to Cardiff. Look like they had the game won. End up losing 29-26. Then they go, they were going to go to the Cheaters in Amsterdam, but the pitch was frozen. So, and they couldn't find an alternative. Game is called off, and Ulster are awarded 28 points to 0 win. And I said at the time, disappointed that the Cheetahs didn't get to play that game, because they don't get to play that many games against top opposition. So hopefully next year they're not, disadvantaged by the same thing. I don't think the Cheetahs would have won the game anyway. I just wanted to see the Cheetahs actually play, all of their games in the competition this year. And then finally then Stade Francais at home, and Ulster win 26 points to 19. Ospreys then, they start off very well. Home win against Connacht, 24 points to 21. Then they go away to Montauban and they win 33 points to 22. Then away to Zebre, they lose that one 23-19. And then finally then Montpellier at home, they lose that one 31 points to 26. Okay, so last year Ulster knocked out in the round of 16 of the Champions Cup, and Ospreys made a quarterfinal of this competition. They're going to have to produce probably their best performance of the season so far to make it back to a quarterfinal this year. I think, Ulster, have been in decent form in the URC this year. They've shown good form in this competition as well, and I'm going to go for an Ulster win. Okay, on to the next game, Stade Francais versus Dragons. This one is on Sunday, and it is a 12:30 kickoff at the Stade Jean Bouen. And yeah, looking at this, you've got Stade 3rd in the top 14. Dragons 15th in the URC. They had a little purple patch, and that's kind of expired now. They're not playing terribly, but they're not picking up results either. So Stade Francais in this competition start up at home. They beat Cardiff 38-17. Then they go away to the Cheetahs and they win 45-22. Then home against the Chiefs. And they win 27 points to 25. Then they play Ulster, and they lose that one 26 points to 19. So the only loss that they had in the pool stages. And then Dragons, they go away to Perpignan and they lose that one 41 points to 17. Then at home to Lyon, 23-21 win, very good for them. Go away to Benetton, heavy loss, 74 points to 21. And then at home, then they beat Newcastle, 35 points to 12. Last year, Stade Francais eliminated the pool stages of the Champions Cup. Dragons eliminated the pool stages of this competition. So both teams, at least making knockouts this year. But again, looking at Dragons, good performances at home, poor performances on the road. They're on the road in this round of 16 as well. So I'm going to back Stade for the win there. Okay, and then on to the final game of the round of 16, Zebre Parma versus Pau. So this one is a 5:30 kickoff on Sunday. It's at the Stadio Sergio Lanfranchi. And yeah, like Zebre, crazy in this competition because they've only won 2 games in the URC all year, and that was rounds 1 and 2. So they've been on we're on round 12 game losing streak in the URC, but they've won more games in this competition already than they've won in the URC. So they start out with home win against Montpellier, 41 points to 17. Then they go away to Montpellier. They lose that one 31-7. Then home to Ospreys. They win 23-19. Then finally, they go away to Black Lion and they win 28-14. Pau played in the Champions Cup. They started off with a home loss to Northampton, 35-27. Then they go away to Bristol. They lose that one 61 points to 12. Then they go away to Scarlets. They win there 47-38. And it looks like they've given themselves the chance to qualify for the knockout stages of the Champions Cup, because basically at that point it was between themselves, Scarlets and the Bulls for that final spot, because the top 3 were miles ahead of them in the pool, and it looked like they'd done the hard job of going away, winning at the Scarlets, and then home to the Bulls, they lose 26-24, and the Bulls go through instead of them. So not, a brilliant end to their Champions Cup this year. And, last year during this competition, they got knocked out in the round of 16. I think maybe it was by Connacht. I'm not sure on that, but certainly got knocked out round of 16. Zebre didn't make it out of the pool stages. At the minute, very contrasting league form for these teams. Zebre 16th and bottom of the URC, Power 2nd in the top 14. So, looking at this, I'd love Zebre to actually pull off a win here. It'd be brilliant. But Pau, in recent years they've done fairly well in this competition. And I think as well, given the fact that they're going so well in the top 14, Zebre might find it tough. I'm going to go for a Pau win, but be cheering for Zebre. So those are our knockout stages there. We probably won't cover any of the games in full over the weekend because Champions Cup was on at the same time, but we certainly will have a wrap up probably on Monday for this competition. But as I said, get a win in this round and suddenly, you're not too far away for possible final and possibly lifting a trophy as well to end your season.